Hey guys, this is DJW0071, and I want to talk to you today about some very interesting prophecy stuff. I've been studying very closely the identity of who the great harlot, mystery Babylon the Great, is. And I think that the Bible clearly tells us who and where Mystery Babylon is. And I want to get into this study with you guys. I think it's been really exciting for me to dig into these Old Testament prophets and also the book of Revelation. Let's take a look at some of the characteristics of Mystery Babylon the Great. This is Revelation chapter 17, as you can see, and I'm just going to point out some of the more important bullets that help us paint a picture of who Mystery Babylon is. In verse 3, it says that he was carried away in the Spirit into the wilderness, wilderness being the desert. So the Spirit takes him to the desert and to see this woman sitting on the beast. Verse 6 is very important too. You see she sees the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. She kills Christians, and she is drunk on their blood, which means she has killed lots and lots of them. Okay, so that's interesting. Let's take a close look at chapter 18, Revelation 18. See what Revelation 18 can tell us. Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. It's mentioned twice, and it's kind of unusual that it's mentioned twice like that. Is fallen, is fallen. I think that is quite interesting because it says that in another place in the Bible. It actually says it in again in Revelation, I believe Revelation chapter 14. It says, is fallen, is fallen. Where else does it say it? Well, let's take a look at Isaiah chapter 21. Where does it say it? Well, it says it right here in verse 9. Babylon is fallen, is fallen. And what is he talking about? Who is he talking about when he says is fallen, is fallen? Well, this is the burden against the wilderness of the sea. At Strong's website right now, and we can check out the meaning of this word wilderness. This is the King James version of Strong's. The word it chooses to use as its first choice is desert, right here. And then the second choice is wilderness, right here. So I took a look at the desert map, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of desert here in the Middle East. When I look at Isaiah 21 and it says desert of the sea, and I look at this map, it seems like desert of the sea. It could be, I guess it could be this part of Africa, and it could be maybe this part of Asia over here. But really, the best qualifier for desert of the sea is this Arabian Peninsula right here. It's desert. It's surrounded by sea on three sides. So, what is this place? In ancient times, where was this place? What was it called? And actually, it's called Edom and Arabia. And what's very, very interesting here is in Isaiah 21, he's calling it the wilderness of the sea. He's telling Elam and Media to besiege this desert of the sea. He calls it Babylon, this wilderness of the sea. And it's very interesting because, like I said before, the only other place where you find Babylon is fallen is in Revelation. So I think there's a connection here with that. I'm basically going to be making a cumulative case for why I believe that Mystery Babylon the Great is in fact modern day Saudi Arabia. But this is kind of the first piece of the puzzle here. The Arabian Peninsula in general certainly fits the mold of wilderness of the sea. This chapter also gives us, it specifically names Edom right here. The burden against Duma, which is right after this burden against the wilderness of the sea. Duma is a city in Edom. It says right here, proclamation against Edom. So he says, so there's more prophecy against Edom right there. And then it names Arabia by name right here, the burden against Arabia. And there's connections. I mean, a lot of people might think that this prophecy in verse 11 and 12 and 13 through 16 here and 17 are different than the prophecies found in verses 1 through 10. But I disagree because it says right here, set a watchman in the tower. And it continues to talk about the watchman right here. So we're still in the same prophecy. He says, go set a watchman, let him declare what he sees. And then he gets into the burden against Duma. And then he calls to me out of Sire, watchman, What of the night? Watchman, what of the night? So it's interesting that he repeats himself again right here, twice. And we're still talking about the watchman right here. There's a watchman. The watchman is still here. And he's repeating himself, just like Babylon has fallen, which is right here in verse 9. So as fallen, repeated. Watchman, what of the night is repeated. So that connects these two, in my opinion. And also, we're still talking about this watchman here. The watchman is still here. He's still prophesying. Also, if you read verses 11 and 12, it's the burden against Dumah, but those verses don't have any burden. He never mentions any burden, so you would assume that Dumah is connected to the verses beforehand, because there's no mention of the burden. The Bible tells us where Edom is. If you look at Ezekiel chapter 25, verse 13 says, Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, I will stretch out my hand against Edom, cut off man and beast from it, and make it desolate from Teman. Dedan shall fall by the sword. So, where shall it be desolate? Where shall Edom be desolate? From Teman to Dedan. Right here, it says so. Alright, so let's check out a map of where Teman and where Dedan are. Here's Teman right here. It's kind of the top corner of Arabia, right here, right next to Israel. And Dedan is right down here. So this little section right in here, it's kind of near Israel, but it's definitely a part of the Arabia. As you can see, this is the area right here that we were looking at before. There's Saudi Arabia. Okay, let's take another look. There's Teman, right there where the A is. And here's Dedan, right here. And modern day Saudi Arabia, right there. Now I want to go to Isaiah chapter 34. This is more stuff about Edom and what will happen to Edom. What happens to Edom? Well, pretty bad stuff, actually. Verse 9 says, Its stream shall be turned into pitch, and its dust into brimstone, and its land shall become burning pitch, and it shall not be quenched day or night. Its smoke shall ascend forever. From generation to generation it shall lie waste. That, to me, is pretty extreme. This is something that we can say has not happened yet, because I don't know of any place on earth that continually burns forever and ever. There's another place in the Bible that burns forever and ever. Let's check it out. Let's check out Revelation chapter 19. Verse 3. Again they said, Hallelujah, her smoke rises up forever. Whose smoke rises up forever and ever? The great harlot. So the great harlot burns forever and ever, and Edom burns forever and ever. As you can see right here, her smoke rises forever and ever. That means well into and after the Millennium Kingdom, Edom and the great harlot are going to be burning forever and ever. So wouldn't it make sense to believe that these two entities could be one and the same? It's very interesting. I definitely have more to add to this case. Let's check out Psalms chapter 137. This is a lament by some captives, Jewish captives that were in Babylon. Here in verse 7, we can see the prophecy against Edom. It says, Remember, O Lord, against the sons of Edom, the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it to its very foundation. O daughter of Babylon, who are to be destroyed. So he calls them, O daughter of Babylon. So now I want to get back to the description of the great harlot in Revelation chapter 17 to see if Edom fits the bill. Let's start at verse 3. It says, It carried me away in the spirit to the desert, or the wilderness. That fits. Saudi Arabia is filled with desert. And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So she's controlling this beast. She's sitting on him and riding on him. He's letting her ride him. Saudi Arabia is the home of Mecca and Medina. I don't know if it'll show us those places. Yeah, right here. Whoops. Here's Medina right here. And here's Mecca right here. These are 2 places that are very important to the Islamic faith. Muhammad was born in Mecca, and later he fled to Medina, which is about 200 miles north. So, Israel and Jerusalem have very little to do with Islam. Saudi Arabia is really the place where Islam was born. All Muslims pray toward Mecca, which is right here. All Muslims bow right toward Saudi Arabia. So it makes sense when we read Revelation chapter 17 that the woman is riding on the beast. It almost seems like she's controlling the beast. That makes sense when we know that Mecca and the Kaaba within Mecca is the capital of Islam. Verse 4 says, "The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls," which means she's rich. I found a list of the GDPs, gross domestic products, in the Middle East. And as you can see here, the top 7 countries are all found on the Arabian Peninsula, except for Israel, which is number 4 right here. As you can see, Qatar, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Oman, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, they all have 6 out of the top 7 GDPs per capita. Most Middle Easterners do look at the Saudi Arabia and the Arabian Peninsula as the rich kids on the block. So it makes sense when we match it to Revelation 17, when we see that the woman was arrayed in all these expensive things. Having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. That could certainly be related to Islam. It could be related to oil. She certainly has a whole lot of dealings with the Western world. We set up their oil harvesting infrastructure, and they make sure that they take dollars, United States dollars, when they sell their oil to different countries. So we made that deal with them, and we've been buying oil from them ever since. Let's move on. Verse 5, "On her head is a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, and of the abominations of the earth." Islam is basically Baal worship. They call it Allah, but it's really the moon god, and that is Baal. We can do a quick search to show where this moon god comes creeping up out of the annals of history. As you can see in verse 21 of Judges chapter 8, you can see here when Gideon killed Zebah and Zalmunna, he took the crescent ornaments that were on the camels' necks. So these Midianites were actually moon worshippers, just like Islamists. So this is not a new religion. It's Baal worship. Let's get back to Revelation chapter 17, verse 6, I believe. It says, "I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. When I saw her, I marveled at great amazement." Could you imagine that Islam is drunk on the blood of the saints? I think that is not difficult to imagine at all. We know that fundamental Islam is a bloodthirsty religion. They kill Christians, they kill Jews. And we see it a couple of times in Revelation that the whore is described as someone who's bloodthirsty. And the Catholic Church, be it not perfect, it certainly is not bloodthirsty for Christians or Jews, and the same for the United States of America. A lot of people will look at Mystery Babylon and say, well, that's got to be the United States of America. Well, the United States of America is not drunk on the blood of the saints. In closing, the verses to really study here to get a better idea of this is Isaiah 21. It names Edom by name, it names Arabia by name, it calls them the desert of the sea, and it makes the connection of Babylon is fallen. And Isaiah chapter 34, verses 5 through 10 talk about how Edom will burn forever and ever, just like Babylon the Great. Babylon will also burn forever and ever, according to Revelation 19, verse 3. Also, Psalms 137, it calls Edom the daughter of Babylon. So these scriptures give us a really interesting perspective on Mystery Babylon's identity and possible modern-day equivalency in Saudi Arabia. So it's been a great study for me. I've enjoyed rooting through the Old Testament prophets, linking the literals to the allegory in Revelation. Hope you guys will join me for the next one. Take care.